We're so blessed. Sometime back, I was anticipating being here to do this today, and I had talked one time to Sharon, our board president, and she said something about it'd be nice to have a sort of a history lesson of our church. So that's what I was planning to do today, and totally forgetting that it was Memorial Day weekend. You know, why they keep messing around, moving stuff? I grew up, it was always the last part of May. Now you never know when it's going to be. But I think it's important for us to recognize that because it's a great day. It's a day when we remember. I had a brother who was a policeman who was killed in the line of duty, and now in Washington, D.C., there is actually a monument with his name on it to all the fallen officers of law. And I think it's appropriate. So I thought of him today in memory of him and his gift to us of giving his life for protection of others. And not everyone has someone like that who died in the service of our country. And so we have a day where each of us can set aside our thoughts to honor these people who have made that trip with their lives. So that's what that's about. And so before we begin today, I would just like us just to take a moment, if we will, and join me as we very quietly just think about all of the men and women who have sacrificed their lives for our country, for our living, for our way of life, our peace, our security. That for a moment, give thanks. Because we recognize it as a gift, and we give thanks for that gift. Quietly and solemnly, and certainly filled with gratitude. Thank you. Amen. As I said, I plan to give us a history lesson of the beginnings of this church. And as I thought about it, it was hard for me to kind of figure out where did it actually begin. We have a date. In my possession recently came this little book. It's a book of records kept by Marie and I and other people on the financial and attendance record of Wilmington Studies Center beginning March 26, 1975, Wilmington, North Carolina. So we're a little over 40 years old. And what we did was that we had gone into Unity sometime before up in Detroit, walked into a church where Jack Blown was a minister, and we didn't go there to go to church. We had tried church for a lot of years, and it just flat wasn't working. And so if he'd said, come to my church, I'd have said, eh. But he advertised a workshop based upon the positive uses of the mind. And thought, well, that I was into, and so we decided to go. And it turned out that we were there every night for a week, absorbing some wonderful teachings and meeting some incredible people, including Jack Ball and including nice people like Peg. And so we decided to try it on a Sunday. And the interesting thing was that I was sitting in church that Sunday, hearing words I'd never heard before, and physically I could feel my head going up and down, and I thought, this is really weird. Because I'm in church agreeing with what's being said. And so it transformed our lives. I mean, we were absolutely, totally caught up in this whole thing in Unity. And if you knew us at that time, to be around us, you weren't safe. Because we were going to drag your butt over to a Unity church. And we did. We dragged a lot of people there, and some people looked at us like, you're out of your mind. I remember one woman got out of the car when we got home, and she went around and got in her car, and I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "I'm going to church." And I thought, success. So we were excited. We were turned on. Our life had turned differently in a lot of different ways, and we were just really going great with life. And we spent a couple of Februarys taking a vacation down in New Orleans. And if you're from Detroit, you spend February in New Orleans. I have to tell you, there's a tad difference. Especially when on Sunday afternoon you go back in Detroit, 10 inches of new snow. I looked at Marie and I said, "We're in the wrong place. We need to go south." Because I had spent some time in the south when I was in the Navy, and I knew it wasn't like that. So we began sending out resumes, and I wound up getting a job here in Wilmington, North Carolina, in Riceville Beach. We had an office over at the beach. I used to sit in my lunch hour on Johnny Mercer's pier and watch the girls in their bikinis. And, life was good. So we said, there must be some kind of a spiritual entity here. We tried this, we tried that, and we even tried a Baptist church that someone said was full of energy. And it was full of energy, but we didn't know what. It was so confusing and frightening. I'd never seen an altar call before. I mean, that, confession in a Catholic church was bad enough, but at least you were in by yourself, in front of everybody. And so nothing was working. And somewhere along the line, we had heard something about study groups. And we were asking, well, what do we do about that? So I knew there was a Unity Village, and so we wrote a letter to Unity Village, Missouri. And it wasn't too long, we got a packet back from a fellow at the Association of Unity Churches. And it was a whole bunch of information about how to start a study group. So we began to follow the process. So the first thing you need to do is have a place to meet. So we found a conference room at a bank down on 17th Street, and they allowed us to go there on evenings. We had come into Unity doing Wednesday nights, so we decided to do Wednesday night. We armed ourselves with a tape recorder. We had recordings of other ministers leading classes and lessons in truth. We had the book, and we had some meditation music, and so Marie would do the meditation, we played the tape. But in order to get people there, it said, advertise in the paper, in the personal column. So we put this personal ad in. If you're ever interested in Daily Word, we're starting a Unity study group. Come be with us. And that first Wednesday night, guess what happened? 9 people showed up. And one of the other things it said in the instructions on how to start a study group was take an offering. We took an offering. 9 people, we took in $9. I wasn't sure if we were at a Unity group or AA meeting. But then look at this next week, April 2nd, 1979. Attendance 10%, up 10 people. It's pretty good growth, isn't it? But look at the offering, $159. Somebody started tithing. Probably us. I still hadn't jumped in. But it's interesting because what happened was that was a setting of traditions, and all of the changes that have taken place in this church, some of these principles are still being used. We're still taking the offering, we're still tithing, because a couple of weeks later we sent a tithe of $20 to Unity Village. We began following the principles of tithing, not only in receiving, but in giving, right from the very beginning. And this has always been the case. It's interesting to see that no matter how many changes that we make, and we've made quite a few, we had an opening statement, and a copy of it was in this little book. We used to say this before everything we did, our statement of being. God is all, both invisible and visible, one presence, one mind, one power is all. This one and this all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am an individualized expression of God, and I'm ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. Now, our statement of being has changed over the years, but we do it. It's a tradition, and this is how we begin our services, is by somehow getting together and speaking the word of truth. And so I got to thinking about this, and we saw this wonderful movie on Friday night. Seymour, an introduction. Did any of you see that? Alien? Wasn't that marvelous? I mean, it's just not only the music, but this person. He was an incredible pianist, and he could not do a concert because he got so nervous, so he became a teacher. And he's still teaching, and he's 85, 87 years old. But his philosophy of life was so wonderful. And at one point, he's talking about the fact that the study of music, and he still studies today, practices 4 hours a day. And he said, if you're going to perfect any part of your life, it must come and affect all of your life. And I thought about that, and I realized that, yes, if we're going to build a church, it's only important if we take that building of that church in mind and utilize it in every aspect of our life. Because life goes on when we walk out the door. So we're not here just to study about God. We're not here just to study the laws of mind action. We're here to learn how to demonstrate them in our lives. And we demonstrate them in the church, and then we demonstrate them in our own life. And so I thought, well, how could we get that into our mind? How does the growth of this church, because it has grown. I was looking at the bulletin. It says here, last Sunday, 182 people, $3,498. That's a little up from $9 and 9 people. So yes, there's been growth. But what has happened in our life, and how does the growth of the church represent a life for us? And that's why I thought about the flow. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the things that happened as we began doing these Wednesday night meetings, listening to the tapes, and we were into it, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And we gathered there one night up the stairs to this bank building. Walked 2 people. There was a man and a woman had a t-shirt on, and on the t-shirt it said, Unity Village. Well, we thought we'd die and gone to heaven. And somebody from Unity Village was there. Turns out it was a second-year ministerial student getting ready to be ordained who grew up here in Wilmington. And his mother saw our little ad in a parcel. She said, you need to go and check these people out. So he came and they checked us out. And I said, do you want to take over? He said, no, just do what you do. We did. So we listened to the tape, and we did a meditation, and we did the prayers, and we took an offering. And afterwards, in the parking lot, we were talking, and he said, this isn't going to work. People aren't going to come and do this. But we were up to 12 people. We thought we were doing pretty well. He said, no, it isn't going to work. Somebody has to teach. You have to get up and teach. And I said, well, we don't have a teacher. He said, well, you do it. And I said, I don't know how to do it. And he said, do it anyway. So the next Wednesday we got together, and I asked the group, I said, would you mind if I started teaching? They said, no, by all means, go ahead. So I went home, made myself a little podium to sit on the table, got a copy of Daily Word, the Lessons in Truth, listened to some tapes, came in and gave a lesson in Lessons in Truth. Everyone said, yay, and next week we had 15 people. It really started to go, and eventually we outgrew that little room. We had a bigger room over at the Carolinian. We rented that every Wednesday night, and then someone said we need a Sunday service. Well, we didn't have a place to do Sunday service, so we decided to do it in our house. And there were 2 wonderful women who came to Unity at that time, Joe and Johnny May. I'd never heard a woman named Johnny May before, but I guess it's a Southern thing. But she was a sweetheart, and so was Joe Feller. Sellers, Joe Sellers, Keith Osteen's grandmother. Anyway, these two had been studying together for years and years and years. And so they were kind of the stalwarts of our group. They were always there. And they brought their relatives. And so we had this Sunday service in our house, in our living room. And so there we were, Marie and I and Joe and Johnny May. And we're singing How Great Thou Art, and I'm giving a lesson and taking an offering. The kids are in the other part of the house just laughing their heads off. So we decided that wasn't the place for us to do Sunday service. So what we did was we rented the part of the building that
H&R Block.
Huh?
H&R Block.
H&R Block, the back of their building, we rented the place. And we decided we needed to have music, so we bought an old piano for $100. It was an old upright. And we had a musician, and we had some folding chairs. So we started to have Sunday services. And then one of the ladies who came to the thing came in one day, and she has this sign that said Unity. So now we had a sign, we had a piano, we had folding chairs, and we actually had people coming. And it was just really going well. We're getting 20, 25 people on a Sunday. We're doing Wednesday night. And I think, this is out of hand. I don't know what I'm doing. And I heard about these classes in Unity Village, 2 weeks of classes. And by then the treasury had grown, $12, $1,500, $1,800 in the treasury. And I said, how about if I go to Unity Village and get smart? And they said, fine, go. So they paid my way out there to Unity Village for 2 weeks. And I was out there for 2 weeks, and I met Frank Judici, who taught me to love the Bible. And we had a short class later on that was about beginning again. And by this time, I'm out of work. And the only thing working in my life was teaching in Unity. And so I'm really absorbed in this book by Frank Whitney, A Beginning Again, and that whole idea. And then I met Eric Butterworth, and Eric Butterworth was there the whole 2 weeks and doing classes in the evening based on his new book, In the Flow of Life. And I thought, yes, this is the flow of life. This is what it is. It's always going. Something's always happening. And on there must have been a dozen people came to me and said, when are you going to become a minister? And I thought, whoa, now it's really getting out of hand. But I went and talked to the guy who ran the ministerial school, and I said, how do I get into ministry? And he said, you can't get in this year. Well, first he said, who are you? So I told him what I was doing, and he said, well, you can't get in this year. Now, I took that as meaning that I could get in next year. So I said, okay. I came home, talked to Marie, and I said, what do you want to do? I also brought home a Kansas City newspaper, and there were all these jobs and things to do. And that wasn't the case here in 1976 in Wilmington for an overeducated engineer. I mean, I just couldn't find anything to do. I was pumping gas, selling cemetery lots. I have no use for a cemetery lot, but I was trying to sell. Had an idea how successful I was. Anyway, it was just... And so we said, okay, let's go for it. So we sold our house, moved out to Unity Village. I told the people here, I said, well, I'm going to go into ministry. And they said, well, that's not why we sent you. I said, well, I'm in the flow of life. I was with Eric Butterworth, and he said, flow with life. And so this is what we're going to do. And so that became, that's the whole thing. And if we look at this ministry, that's exactly what it's been. And the only parallel I can think of is that we have, has anybody ever done a whitewater rafting trip? Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, it's one of the most exciting things you can do. And it's just, you never know what's going to happen. But you're ready for it. And it's tension and excitement. And sometimes you're just floating along nice and peacefully, and then there comes a bend in the river, and you hear this noise, and you think, oh boy, yeah. Here we go. But the other thing is that you're trained, you're prepared, you're given orders. And when the leader says, paddle, everybody paddles. Or paddle on the left, everybody on the left paddles. And you better do it. Or the river will win. And so it's just interesting. So, the growth of the church is very much like that, right? Like a whitewater rafting time. Sometimes it just running along and everything is peaceful and everything, and everybody can take the oars out of the water, but then there's other times when you better dig those oars in because something's changed. And that's been the history of our church. See, we came back here in 1985 because we were told when I was ordained, don't go back home. Well, I was dumb. Because this is where our heart was. So we went to Florida for a while, and we went out to California, and I know that a lot of people love California. It's a beautiful place to be, but we were too far away from all of our children and everything. So after almost 3 years, we said, plus the fact that, I had gotten into a ministry of 700 people, $40,000 a month budget. I was working, and I hadn't been trained for that. There's a Peter principle, I think it is. It says that we keep rising to the level of our incompetence, and that's where I was. So I said, see you guys, and left. Came back here. Marie came on ahead. Because the group was still here. Not only that, the group was kind of thriving, because what had happened is that when we decided we were leaving, there was a woman in need who said, well, I'll teach, and she did. And then Jim Roseberry came down on a Wednesday once a month and did a class from Raleigh. And so the group stayed together. And Nita worked at a little preschool called Amy Bradley Preschool. And they let her use that place at night on Wednesday nights for her classes. They had given up on the Sunday thing. And so that went on for years. And then finally Amy Bradley's preschool left, and they said, you guys want this building? And they said, yeah, sure. How much? They said, $21,000 or $19,000, something like that. It was reasonable, $300 a month. They got the church in Raleigh to buy it for them. So when we came back, that's what was here. There was a little one-bedroom building here that they were holding classes in.
Prayer room is, yeah.
Right where the prayer room was. We had to have that finally removed. And so that's what we moved into. And I loved it. I had a little office, and I would sit in the office, and nobody bothered me. 18 people show up on Sunday. I think the second week there were 19, growth again. But I was just having a blast and enjoying it. But then they started bringing their friends. And there were more friends. Pretty soon, we were stuffing 50 people in a little room, and they were sitting on the porch. It was my office on the desk in my porch, and we had a little book room, and the kids would be in there, and halfway through the service, the kids would come through to go potty. It was really nice, except it was getting jammed, and finally someone says, we need a bigger building. And I remember the story about Charles Fillmore. Someone said to him one time, we need a bigger building, and someone said, we don't have a building fund. He reached in his pocket, he pulled out a penny, threw it to him, and says, there, now you have one. And it started, that's how they built the temple in Kansas City. So I was standing there in front of the people, and someone said, we need a building, and I had 2 pennies, I put them on the piano, I said, now we have a building fund. And everybody laughed, but you would be amazed at what would be going to happen. There was one woman who had moved to Hawaii, and she was almost a vagrant when she left here. She moved to married a zillionaire, evidently, because all of a sudden we're getting checks for $5,000 for a piano and $10,000 just for the heck of it. And the money was pouring in, and I'm kind of crazy. And so we started some fundraising thing, and so I couldn't figure out how we were going to do this. And I talked to Chad up in Asheville, and Chad says, well, we had to enlarge our building, so we did it ourselves. We got guys together, and we built this building. I said, That's great, that's what we'll do, we'll build a building. I told Maria that we're going to build a building, and she said, "You're out of your mind. Have you looked at this congregation?" You know, I think I was about 56 or 57 or 60 about that time, and I was the youngest person in the church. And I said, "I don't know, but we're going to do it." And young variable men started showing up, guys who knew electricity, guys who knew how to put together buildings, and women who were happy to make mortar. And so we started these fundraising things. We had the plans. We got the plans from Lowe's of a house, and we just took out the walls, and then we had to increase the flooring to get it through the city inspectors, because we told them we're going to use it for a church. And the women got busy making cement and mud. They called themselves the Mud Mamas. And we built a building. And it was great. It was wonderful. We had friends who came from California and made some stained glass windows for us. And it was funny, the first service we had in that building was on Easter Sunday, and it was only half done. Everything wasn't closed in. I said, "Well, next Sunday we can go back in the other building." We had a big fan, they were blowing everything, and everyone says, "No, we're never going back there." So it was a mess. Every Sunday we did church on a half-built building, and they still kept bringing friends. Within a couple of years, we had to go to 2 services. But we were having a great time, and it was wonderful. It was one of those times when you're floating, and if there was any rapids that were quick ones, and there were ones that we got through, and we had fun with it, and it was great. And then someone said, "We need a new building." So 1996, we built this building. And it was a different experience altogether, because what we did was we had people participate in that building because it was stick building, so we let them buy it. And Nancy said, "I have to share this, because one of the things we sold were studs for $1.50 a piece." She bought 10 studs. But we sold parts of the building and all kinds of anything to make money, and we did it. And somebody loaned us the rest of the money, and then we bought a piece of building back there and used that for our youth ed building. So it's interesting to see how it grew. And then we decided to build this building, 1996. I don't remember if you know 1996, but 1996 was the year of 2 hurricanes, not 1 but 2. We were 2 hours away from finishing electricity, and the electricians went home when Fran hit. Said, "We can't stay here for the weekend." It took us 3 or 4 weeks to get the electrical inspected. Everything happened. We were all set to dedicate this building in October. We dedicated it with fans and a generator running the lights. And one of the things the only thing that happened on time in that building was these chairs came. We had a mountain of chairs in here. So we would lug all those chairs out to let the workers come in. And then we'd lug them back in for Sunday. And we're having service with the fans blowing in it. But we were having a good time, I think. But that's how it is, and that's what a ride is, and that's what flow is like, and that's what, being on the river and getting somewhere is. There are bends in the rivers, there are rough spots, and I remember, so it came time for Marie and I to retire, which we did, had this big blow up, and I had prepared for that because I wanted the transition from ministers to go smoothly. I wanted to be a wide spot on the river, and so we had gotten Russell ordained through the field licensing program, and so it was just going to be a transition to Russell, and so that was wonderful. And then 3 years later, Russell leaves. I said, "Russell, That wasn't part of the plan. Oh, but I've heard the call, you know. Okay. So we thought, whatever. And then here comes Richard. Wow. What a trip that was. You know? And then a little over a year ago, we get Richard's diagnosis. And I remember one of my trips on the raft, and we had gone the whole time this time on the river up in the mountains, and I was in the lead boat, and we're heading toward this place where the river split, and over here was some rapids, and over here was a waterfall. I could see the water going over, but I couldn't see it hit the bottom. And the leader of the boat was taking us that direction. I said, you're not going there. And she said, yes, we are. And I said, oh, dear God. I don't want to go there. And we went there and we went over this waterfall about 7 or 8 feet. And went, wow, you know, but we survived it. And then she says, forward, backwards, go backwards. So we're going backwards and trying to get out of the mainstream. And I said, why are we doing this? And she said, wait, the next boat came. Went like this, boom. I mean, everybody went flying into the river. So we were there to pick up the people. It's called planning. So we had to use our oars. And we didn't see it coming, and we didn't see Richard's demise coming, did we? Thank God a bunch of you had oars in the water. And you've been rowing like crazy. And I'm just so proud of you. Good job. Now we're ready for another bend in the river, and we have no idea what's going to happen, dude. But we know this, we have tradition. And we know that we got a lot of oars in the water. And we will make this one of our exciting trips through life. Because we are